All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. After putting out a feeler on Shohei Ohtani and being a finalist to sign starting pitcher Yoshinobu Yamamoto, the New York Mets are now left to pivot as they look to improve their team. Mets team owner Steve Cohen has had control of this team for less than 5 years, and he has shown a willingness to spend the dough. Now, since Cohen has taken over, we saw him make that trade for shortstop Francisco Lindor and then sign him to the long term extension, giving big free agency contracts to the likes of Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander. But with all of that, the Mets still have the reputation of being the Mets. And I say this because it's just sometimes, a calamity of errors has come over this franchise. And it's not just a one time thing, it's happened a lot over the years for a lot of different reasons. You think about it, the Mets this past season had the largest payroll in MLB history, only to finish with a losing record. And honestly, things got started on the wrong foot for the Mets before the season even began when Edwin Diaz had that injury in the World Baseball Classic. And of course, being that last year was not what the Mets expected it to be, we saw them trade away both Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, only to watch them battle it out against each other for the American League pennant in the postseason. And of course, in the case of Max Scherzer, he won a World Series championship with the Texas Rangers. Now, I get it. The Mets have a frustrated fan base on their hands, as after seeing the Dodgers get both Otane and Yamamoto, while seeing the New York Yankees pick up outfielder Juan Soto from the San Diego Padres. And of course, if you're a Met fan, you're left to say, well, you know what? What about us? Well, I'll tell you like this. The Mets, they're going to pivot. They're going to alter. They're going to call an audible and they're going to adjust. And at the end of the day, if you build it, they will come. And the reason why I say it is this. Yes, Cohen is a billionaire owner and he wants to win. He also is willing to spend money, and we've seen that. But at the end of the day, he's also attempting to change the culture in Queens. And when I say that, he took over a bad situation. Remember, the Wilpons did not leave Steve Cohen in an ideal situation. And some of his big money spending so far, on the stewardship of the Mets has been to cover up and mask some of the deficiencies in his team that he inherited. When he came in, the Mets did not have a deep farm system. The Mets didn't have, a deep roster, period. So it's like, you know what? We got to go in there and plug and patch and try to put together a quality team now at the major league level. We've also seen Cohen spend money on guys that have come up short. Remember, after the Mets won 100 plus games in 2022, Cohen went out there and spent a lot of money last winter on free agents on some of his guys, and of course, some of those guys, a la Jeff McNeil and a la Brandon Nimmo, just to name a few, did not have great years. The Mets offensively were not good this past season. But the bottom line is the Mets are going to have to build from within. And I think Cohen understands that because you remember last year in trading guys like Justin Verlander and trading guys like Max Scherzer, Steve Cohen was willing to pay a decent portion of their salary in order to get back top prospects from both the Houston Astros and Texas Rangers. And he knows that, you know what, you have to have that organizational depth. You've got to build from within with your youngsters. You can't just go out there and simply buy a championship. And it's one of those where just trying to buy a championship, theoretically in Major League Baseball is getting tougher due to the fact of A, the luxury tax, and B, the expanded postseason. And you could flip it around any way that you want as far as which one makes it tougher. But nonetheless, that expanded postseason has changed a lot of things. The additional tiers to the luxury tax have changed things as well. But at the end of the day, you talk about the Mets. missing out on Shohei. I really don't think that the Mets missed out on Shohei because, like I said, when he signed the deal with the Dodgers, I think that his heart was always in Southern California and in the Los Angeles area. So that was, it's one of those where if the Angels weren't going to give him the deal, the top deal that he was seeking, obviously, who do you look to? The Los Angeles Dodgers, who were more than willing to give Shohei $700 million. And then you look at Yamamoto. Uh, the Mets basically offered Yamamoto the same deal that the Dodgers did. And it's one of those where, like I talked about last night, I think that Yamamoto was just more comfortable being in LA with Shohei, and even though that it's a big market, Los Angeles, clearly the second biggest media market in the world, or the country rather, the pressure to win is not the same as it's going to be in New York City. So I'll tell you like this, Cohen, he struck out on the big free agent tickets so far this offseason, but I don't think the Mets are done. And like I talked about last night, after the Yamamoto signing, it's one of those where I really do believe that the hot stove is going to heat up. I think more guys are going to come off the board between now and probably mid to late January would be pushing it, probably mid January, because you figure pitchers and catchers report in about 6 weeks or so, 6 or 7 weeks, give or take, for spring training. So, some of these guys out there, they're still looking for homes for 2024. And the Mets have an opportunity. I think they can pivot and try to, fill some holes, some much needed holes that have to be filled on this team. But even with that said, the Mets have to go out there and make a move, and I think they will. Okay. It's been a tough go for this front office. I know that David Stearns is running the front office as the president of baseball ops. They still don't have a general manager. And also, if you're the Mets, you've got to take care of home first. And when I say taking care of home, I'm talking about your all-star first baseman in Pete Alonso. This is set to be his walk year. Okay. And it's one of those where Pete Alonso is now represented by Scott Boras. And Scott Boras does not believe in giving hometown discounts. And of course, once the season starts, if you haven't gotten that deal done with a Scott Boras client, you can forget about it because they're going to play the season out. And whatever you were looking to pay him, it's going to be more because his value is going to have increased. So I know that David Stearns is not the guy that brought in Pete Alonso. I totally understand that. But you get the feeling that Steve Cohen wants Pete Alonso in New York in a Mets uniform long term. Clearly, the fans do because he's a fan favorite there. But nonetheless, if you're the Mets, you got to be prudent and take care of your business with him now because Pete Alonso, I think he's going to have a big year if he doesn't have a guaranteed contract for 2024. It may not be an Aaron Judge type situation that we saw in 2022 with the Yankees, but nonetheless, by the Yankees not paying Aaron Judge, look how much more it cost them on that deal. So yes, you're going to have to pay Pete Alonso, but it could be cheaper right now for both money and years. So getting back to the Mets overall, I think at the end of the day, Cohen is still trying to build a minor league system, trying to make his team deeper from top to bottom. And I mean, just look at this division that the Mets are competing in. You got to deal with the Atlanta Braves. And the Atlanta Braves have a lot of young talent that's not going anywhere anytime soon. You've got to deal with the Philadelphia Phillies. The Miami Marlins are improving. They just made the postseason this past October. And then the Washington Nationals are beginning to show the signs of turning things around. The Mets don't want to get lost in the wash. The Mets also want to give their fan base something to hope and cheer about heading into 2024. Now, yes, Steve Cohen understands that you got to have stars to put meat in the seats. And it's one of those where, you know what? He shoots for the moon trying to get those stars. Now, he's coming back. And I think that the Mets are going to do some things, pick up some pieces for this team. But like I said, priority number one, in my opinion, for the Mets should be taking care of Pete Alonso. But nonetheless, they've struck out so far in free agency, but I still think the Mets are going to go out there and make a move or two to raise some eyebrows in a positive way for their fan base and try to get something going as they head into 2024. So, folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now, you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.